Hello, Tweaking Long War tubers, and welcome to a not exactly normal episode, but more of a guide slash how-to slash tips and tricks slash, that kind of stuff on modding Long War specifically. So, if you just want to download a .ini file that you can plop into your own, I'll double check the correct directory structure in a second. I'm going to upload a small tweak.ini, sort of the XComGame core.ini is the file I'm talking about, that sort of downgrades normal mode to something I consider closer to easy mode Long War, because I'm aware a lot of people that watch my videos or my stream, I've heard quite a few times people have tried to play it. If they're not, they just can't get into it. It's too hard, or it's just too frustrating, and I've had those challenges myself, and I've put quite a few hours into Long War, hundreds by now, in fact, that I feel I can tweak the INI to a point where it's still fair, it still demonstrates Long War mechanics, but they're not nearly so punishing, and I think you have a better chance of being a newbie walking into it and learning how Long War works, but not dying instantly kind of thing, because I really enjoy a lot of the gameplay mechanics that Long War introduces to XCOM. It's got more strategy options, there's more choices, and it's a better game. But I think the easiest setting, normal, maybe with cinematic mode on or something, is still way too hard for an entry-level player. Unless you're already playing Impossible Iron Man on vanilla or something, in which case you'll probably jump in fairly smoothly. But that's not the majority of players, right? I know a lot of people just want to play for fun, sort of not Iron Man, sort of for fun. So anyway, point is, I will go over some of my changes in this video. I'll sort of explain them if you're interested, and if you just wanted to, install the file and give it a go, the file there should be a link under this video, and you're looking for my assuming you've installed XCOM and Long War correctly, you go to My Documents, My Games, XCOM Enemy Within, not Enemy Unknown, make sure it says XCOM Enemy Within, XComGame, config, and then the file you're going to replace is XComGameCore.ini. I am currently playing on beta 15e, and every time you update Long War, it will, I probably overrule the INI setting will be refreshed every time you download a new version. If you're playing on an older version, I would not recommend using my INI file because it could cause you some problems. So that's the bare bones version of it. So if you're interested, before I go over the INI stuff, this is our campaign that I'm currently working on Classic. One thing that we've done is I've upgraded it from 15C to 15E just recently. So there's going to be a few little tweaks. They've changed some of the perk trees are a little different than they used to be. I'll try to update people on this as I recognize them, but Gunslinger is no longer a perk. Ranger is now both Gunslinger and Ranger, and anyone that had a Gunslinger perk has had it replaced with something else. Or their Ranger perk has been replaced with something else, one or the other. They've been combined together, basically. So, Assaults, for instance, have a new skill, assuming I've got any. They now have, I think it's Executioner is new. It used to be Gunslinger here and Ranger here. And one of the things I'm going to have to do is using the game console, the dev console, I'm going to be removing anyone that has Aggression and replacing it with Ranger, because Ranger is way better than Aggression, but it was not an option when I picked it, so I don't feel that that's fair, for instance. There's also a small bug for anyone who's already picked Ranger. They will have a extra skill. They could, maybe not guaranteed. There we go. Pyrokinesis. This is a psionic skill. I think it's a 4th tier one, and this is simply because Alice had Ranger before I upgraded to 15E, so she's sort of inherited what the new Gunslinger or Ranger perk has turned into. And I'll have to be manually removing those to clear it up. It's not a big deal, but I'll have to fix those up. So there's been a few changes like that, a couple balancing, things like that, whatever. As far as the overall campaign, I'm not quitting it yet, but it is in a tough situation, a tough enough situation that we're going to be moderating the difficulty a little via the I&I tweaks. With 3 alien bases, nearly 4 or 5, a really, really shoddy roster. I don't mean to... It's none of your guys' fault specifically, but we don't have enough experienced soldiers to go on enough real missions. The wounds... We've got so many wounds, it's ridiculous. And that's not even counting just deaths and stuff. Like, we've had a really hard go at it. So this is pretty bad, and we're really behind on the air game, I feel. Like, 3 interceptors is not enough. I have a secondary campaign I've been doing on Twitch. By the time we were in the middle of July, I'm pretty sure I had satellites across all of Europe, North America, and I was ready for South America any day. And that means I had like 3 or 4 here, 3 or 4 Ravens here, and then maybe a couple ready to go. So I probably had 2 or 3 times the interceptors, triple the satellites. The soldiers were way more... Like, I think by approximately this date on the other campaign, I had 10 to 16, like 10, between a dozen and a dozen and a half tech sergeants and higher. Right now we've got like 4 or 5 tech sergeants. So that's, like, we're going to have a really hard time. It's not too much further off before we fight Muton Elites and heavy floaters, let alone the multitude of cyber discs and mechtoids and stuff. We're just going to struggle to get along. So that's my arguments there. So anyway, like I said, we're going to be tweaking it to be a little bit less punishing. Without further ado, let's go talk about the tweaking, because I think it's interesting. I don't know, probably isn't for everyone, but this is the tweaks that I have made and a sort of short description of how to go about this if you're interested, for instance. So, let's, don't worry about the text, that's the wrong one. Let's see, I need to link up. Sorry, I should have done this ahead of time. Professional YouTuber, right? I need to add a Windows capture for a notepad. There you go. Thought I had this set up ahead of time. Okay, hopefully you guys can read this. I've tried to upgrade, tried to upsize the font enough that it should be big enough that you can read on a YouTube. So we're in you may not be able to see the file title, but this is the XComGame core.ini. As I said, it's in, just one more time in case you forgot, my documents, my games, XCOM enemy within XComGame config. Those are your directories. At first glance, this is a monster of a file. It's huge, and all of this are... There's all kinds of little tweaks you can do to Long War in here. I feel like it's not necessarily laid out that easily for newbies. The first thing you look at is a ton of random gibberish, right? This doesn't mean a whole lot. I recommend turning on something like word wrap. A lot of the times... Or is it turn off? Turn off word wrap, sorry. This way, you'll be scrolling to the right. So each line is like one thing specifically. So this first line is a civilian character, and then all of the stats for it. And then the next line, well, hopefully is, you know, another soldier, and then all the stats for it. I find this makes a little bit more sense than having them word wrapped around. Anyway, if you were going to just randomly use this, I would suggest trying things like find what. I want to edit meld stuff, for instance. And then you'd go see if you can find something that sounds right. There's going to be, everything after a semicolon is like a comment, so it can kind of explain what that line means. So for instance, Deus Ex, I think this is a second wave option. Maybe. Percentage reduction in cache time for cost of gene monsters. So this number, or this stat, I don't even know. It must be a second wave option or something. Oh no, this is a sorry, this is a bad example, but this is one of your nation picks when you start a new thing. And I assume if you know the numbers, each one of these is something. It's a bad idea. Let's go to another meld page. Let's find something more useful. Okay, this is easier to explain. Much easier. This is how much meld you get from a mechtoid. You do not get 40, you get 4. So think of it divided by 10. So if you wanted to modify this, you could say, well, I think 4 meld is not enough. I want 8 meld. That should give you 8. Or 4 meld is too much. I only want 1. and then you'll get 1 meld per mechtoid. So that's like how you can sort of make some quick edits. Usually they're pretty easy, so you don't have to worry about them too much. Some of them are more complicated. Anyway, without further ado, the changes that I have made to my own game and are in the INI I would recommend. So, the first one at the top of my list here is soldier cost. Now, this might be a little extreme. Oh, don't you be like that. There we go. So, if we go to soldier cost, I just saw it. Where did it go? There you go. It doesn't, there's no difference for, oh no, this is the wrong one. Keep going. That's minimum aim. That's stats. That's not what I'm looking for. This is the one I'm looking for. You have to be careful. You have to actually read the line to figure out what they're going to do. This, by default, was 25, so it would cost 25 credits per soldier. If you want to change it to 10 or 5, you feel free. I feel like having soldiers for free, given the sort of scale of the Long War, the entire world's resources, the least they can do is send us some soldiers for free. It's not going to really unbalance hardly anything, other than you've got a few more replaceable soldiers. Basically, my goal with this one is lower the cost. It's a little bit easier to replace if someone dies, so you're not necessarily going to reload every time a soldier gets murdered. You're still losing their experience and possibly their gear, but at least you don't lose 25 bucks as well. It's a small mod, really, no big deal. We'll get to some more interesting things here in a second. So the next line is CB Expert. And that should be down from here. Okay, this one, this line here, I think its default is is number 80, which is 80% of how long it takes to build an item is how long it takes to repair it. Now, apparently, according to the little thing here, you can reduce this with more engineers and some foundry projects. But I have found that the repair mechanic is brutally painful. It's hard enough trying to build enough laser weapons or Gauss weapons, whatever you like. It's hard enough to get enough of those steadily supplied. Having it take 80% of the time to build a new one every time they get broken means you have to build a spare, basically. So if you want to have a laser sniper rifle, you better build 2. If you want to build a laser Gatling gun, you better build 2. And that makes it nearly twice as expensive, basically, to equip your soldiers. So if I put it to 20%, most things can be repaired within a couple days. So you might miss a mission or so, maybe 1 or 2 missions without that weapon, but probably you'll be okay without that. Unless you get a bunch of missions all on the same day, it shouldn't cause you too much problems. You still have to pay to get it repaired. It's the same alloys and dollar fat cost, but it just takes less time. So that's an easy one. And the next one is really important too. Interceptor repair. So this line is the hours it takes to repair at maximum, 100% damage. I think by default this was set to 600. So if you want to pull out a calculator, I guess we can do this. Calc. 600 hours divided by 24 hours a day. That's 25 days to repair a practically destroyed interceptor. Basically, a sliver of health left, basically. I have cut it in half, which means the longest it will take to repair an interceptor is 12 days. So a small wound, like a quarter damage wound, will only take 3 or 4 days to repair. Half damage will take about a week. This makes the air game less stressful. You still have to be careful. You're still gonna have some aircraft shot down if you're not careful, but you'll spend less time fielding them, which means overall you won't need quite as many interceptors to hold off the UFOs. I don't think it's going to change a whole lot either. I think I might have lowered one of these as well while we're here. Let me see. Did I write it down? I've got a little notepad beside me here. I'm pretty sure I did change this one, even if I didn't write it down. I think this used to be a week, so 24 hours times 7. That's how long it took to install a laser cannon, which I thought was outrageous. An entire week to just, bolt on a gun. I know it's more complicated than that, but still, it took a little bit longer. And I also think I made the refueling one, wherever that is, I made it lower. But I changed a couple little air repair, air rearming stats. Not to 0 or anything. I still try to keep it balanced, but it's, I'm trying to think overall of keeping the game better for new players, basically. The next one on my list is the Psi Gift Chance. This one was originally 0.45, which is the percent if the target's will is equal to whatever level of difficulty it is for that level, basically. It's hard to know exactly. I think the first tier is approximately the same number as your will, so... I don't know the numbers, but I think... Whatever. Point is, I added 15% because I find failing... Oops. Failing over and over again on the psionic testing is just a pain in the butt. It's just a waste of time. It takes a week to find out you've been failed. Then you go for again another week, and then you've been failed. Until eventually the odds roll in your favor. Adding 15% just makes it a little bit less stressful. You'll still fail, but overall it'll be a little bit easier to train people up. That's really all I'm thinking here. The next one has to do with soldier injury times. Keep going the wrong direction on the text file here. Surprisingly, right here. So, again, similar to the Interceptor, this is hours rather than minutes. So, we actually saw that 600 hours was 25 days for Interceptors. The default with this is 1,320, which divided by 24 is 55 days. So, if you have a soldier that is critically injured, now, it's still going to depend on their max HP. So 1 out of 10 HP is 10% of this total... Well, 90% of the total duration. Go the other way around. At max, you could be gone for almost 2 months. I decided that that's bull, and it just takes too long. Basically, this stat, as well as the fatigue, forces you to have a ton of spare soldiers. And it means you have to spread up your experience from your missions. You have to... try to balance. If you ever get a bunch of missions all in the same day, you have a really hard time. I just think it's a little bit overly punishing. So you'll still have people out for a month, but it's more likely with a small injury they'll be back in a few days or a week or two, basically. It halves the overall injury timer. That's all it does. It's nothing outrageous, I don't think. The next one is for fatigue, which I'm actually... The more I think about it, the less I like the fatigue system in Long War. I think it was an interesting idea, but I don't think it works out... it's right here. The more I think about it, the less I like this stat. It starts at 100%, which is approximately 1 week for a normal soldier per mission, plus all of your modifiers for officers, psionic, gene mods, yada yada. It can get up to around 2 weeks or so of fatigue, I think, at max. If you have a really highly gene-modded psionic soldier. I rolled it down to 33%. So a normal soldier who's got no gene mods or psionics or anything should get approximately just under 2 days, 1.5 to 2 days of rest time. That's enough time for them to have a sleep, get some lunch, go for a movie, get another sleep, and get back to work. Okay? I think that's fair. This one will result in needing less soldiers, similar to the repair stat, the base injury stat. You're just not going to need quite as many. So, you'll get used to the fatigue system if you play with this INI, but it won't be, like, overwhelmingly, man, I sure wish I had 50 soldiers on my roster. You might be able to get by with 20 or 30. You know, might be a little bit easier. Anyway, I didn't change any of the fatigue per officer or anything like that. All I did was change the base. So, as you get super soldiers, they'll still need more fatigue time, basically. Okay, next thing that I've changed, we'll go through these, I'll try to go through these fairly quickly, is Psi XP, I believe. So, you can change the amount of experience needed per rank if you want. I think because I've reduced the fatigue and recovery timers, you'll probably be sending the same people on the same missions more often, so I don't want to lower the XP requirements. I think you'll be able to rank up to higher levels quicker just with the changes I've already made, so I don't need to undo this at all. On the other hand, I remember in my Beta 13 campaign, specifically the top 2 or 3 psionic levels, we're going to take like 30, 40 missions or something ridiculous to get them trained up. I just tweaked these down a little bit. Not tremendously, but I think the top used to be like 2,500 or something. So my idea was, assuming you can pass your 1 week % chance to learn a new skill, don't make me do 100 missions with my volunteer to get them up to master. That's no fun. Just going over and over and over again. So grinding away for psionic experience. That's not cool. All right. Next thing is this is a very important stat. This is possibly the most important stat in the entire file, and it's a difficult one to explain and understand. If I understand this correctly, the max active AI units. On one hand, the easy answer is this is also the maximum number of aliens you'll see on the map at once. Probably on something like a large landed or a base assault or a base defense. Those really large missions, this is the top cap of the number of aliens you'll see. I can't remember what I changed it to. I think my normal one was 60 or 70, and classic was 70 or 80. I've taken them down by about 10 or 20. That's not just the max active AI, though. If I understand this number correctly, this is a percentage of all missions. So if you think of like the way I try to explain it to the couple people I've talked to is, if you think about like a normal mission, say an abduction mission or something, say a medium abduction mission. If you're used to seeing, say, 20 aliens on your average abduction mission, lowering this by 10% from whatever the max is, that gives you that 20 for that difficulty and that mission. That should lower the number of aliens you see by 10% on that mission, as well as all missions. So my idea here is by lowering this a little bit, there will just be a few less aliens overall. Not drastically, I didn't cut it in half or anything, but instead of having missions with 30, 40 aliens every time, we'll see 25, 30, just a little bit less. It's taking it from normal difficulty to maybe something like easy for newbie difficulty, basically. It just makes the ground missions a little bit less. Well, the worst ground missions are when you're surrounded by a bunch of pods. You activate all at the same time. So I'm trying to reduce the chances of just bad luck causing you to lose your squad because there was 15 floaters surrounding you and there was no way to escape. You just all died. Or chrysalids, for that matter. But I recommend considering dropping those a little bit. The next one is debatable, but we're talking about Panic from Terror missions. This was a design change that Long War added to the game that I don't really agree with. So you can see some panic. This is the amount of panic that will be gained depending on different things. We're kind of in the panic section of the INI. So let's say you fail your terror mission. -20 panic, which is 1 bar on the situation screen. That's pretty fair. For the entire continent, if you fail your mission or you ignore it, 1 bar of panic. Okay. Negative is plus 20. Don't think negative. Plus 20. The thing is, in Long War, every citizen that is died, even if you successfully kill all the aliens, every civilian increases the panic both in the country and on the continent you're on. So I have kept the panic increase for the continent. Every dead civilian does have a penalty of 1 panic for the entire continent. So if there's a terror mission in Canada, USA, Mexico, Canada are getting 1 panic for every dead civilian. But they're not getting what this is originally was 2 for the country, in addition to 1 for the entire continent, which would have meant 3 per dead civilian per terror mission, even if you win. So if 10 people died, you would have 30 panic in the country that you went to save, even though you won it, which is more than if you failed it. So I think, unless I'm missing some numbers here, that's stupid. We'll still gain some panic, but it's not going to be so brutal. On your average early game terror mission, you're probably still going to have 10 or 15 people die. It's very hard to save everyone nowadays with the high alien count. So you're still going to be increasing panic. It's not going to cripple you. You're not going to lose countries from the project instantly just because you couldn't save 100%. So hopefully you understand that reasoning there. The next one, I'm actually going to undo this one while I'm here it won't actually be in the, well, maybe it will. I'll leave it in. This is the meld multiplier. By default, it's 1.00, which is just normal, 100% of what you normally get. I'm going to up it by 33%. This gives you more meld, which primarily should allow you a little bit more freedom with gene mods and mechs, primarily. You'll still need to pay for them with credits, but you'll just overall have a little bit more money. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the canister times. There is actually a way to make meld cans last a little bit longer, although it takes a little bit more fiddling. It's a little bit harder for me to explain because I don't know the details yet. But I was thinking of just leaving this normal and then just letting the meld cans last a little longer, just forcing you to pick them up, but not making you suicide your team to get them, basically. But for now, an extra 33%, that feels like a little bit easier than normal, basically. But it really, you're not going to have millions of meld. You're still going to have to pick and choose what you spend it on. Okay, the next one is for arc throwers. I don't know about you, but I find catching aliens in Long War frustrating. Most of your people get one chance per item for an arc thrower until you get Sergeant Engineers if you pick the right perk. So by default, this was 61, which is the vanilla, well, the vanilla arc thrower in vanilla Long War was 1. 61, I believe, is the maximum you could get for an injured alien. So if an alien is at like 1 HP with all of the upgrades, I think 61% is the best you can do in Long War. I've upped it to 80. It's still not going to be a perfect guarantee, but you'll find overall it's a lot less painful to capture an alien. Even if you can only get them down to 2 or 3 HP, you still might have 50-60%. So, you know, you might even want to take this up a little higher. I was considering just going up to 1 like vanilla XCOM. But, you know, Long War does give you more opportunities to capture, so I don't want it to be overpowered. It's just, you do need to capture these guys to get all the plasma weapons and all of your, like, you need to capture more than in vanilla anyway to make your plasma weapons yourself. You might as well be able to capture them. If you feel like you're capturing too many, stop bringing arc throwers. It's easy. Next thing, this is a relatively minor change. UFO fusion. The next thing has to do with critical wounds. The way, just like when I told you about how I decreased the soldier cost, specifically to prevent myself and others from save scumming, just reloading every time someone dies, is I'm trying to lower the penalty for death a little bit. So, by default, you would lose... Oh, I did it again. By default, you would lose 15 willpower if you've been critically wounded. That is, basically you died, but you held on to life until a medic came by and stabilized you. That's the only way to get a critical wound. If you're down to 1 HP, that is not a critical wound. Critical wound means the medic has to stabilize you or else you're dead. You've basically died. But at 15 will per critical wound, you will become useless versus psionic aliens very, very quickly. You'll just get mind-controlled and mind-frayed like nothing. -10 is still pretty bad, but I'm trying to make it so, you know, if you had a 50 willpower soldier gets critically wounded down to 40, you know, maybe you can still take him on a couple missions rather than going down to 35. It just, you know what I mean, right? I'm just trying to make it so that if someone dies or is critically wounded, you don't just reload, you don't just give up. Maybe you can keep playing with that guy because he's not totally useless anymore. You know where I'm going, right? Next thing. This one I'm sure will be a big hit with lots of people. Who loves trying to shoot flying enemies? The default air evade defense bonus is plus 30. So this is whenever a floater, drone, cyber disc, seeker, heavy floater, anything that flies basically, whenever they are not on the ground, so they're one tile above the ground, they get a passive 30 defense bonus, making them incredibly difficult to shoot. I lowered it to 20 and I considered going farther, but 10% is a fairly significant buff, or debuff for the aliens. This, I believe, may affect you if you're in Archangel armor. I'm not 100%, don't quote me. It's not a good idea to let your Archangel armor suit get shot at anyway, so it's kind of a double-edged sword if it does do it like that, but for the most part, it'll be a little bit easier to shoot down flyers. Instead of having to rely on Mind Fray for floaters and I don't even know what you rely on for cyber discs and stuff, heat ammo and just getting lucky, it's just going to be a little bit easier to shoot them. Again, like I said, a little bit easier than normal is my idea here. My overall strategy, I should have mentioned earlier, was to make to have an INI file that made normal Long War closer to easy, and that if you want to turn on cinematic mode, that would be very easy. Like cinematic mode, like watching a movie, not a problem. If you're just playing it without cinematic mode, it should be, you know, maybe newbie friendly. Anyway, we've only got a couple more here before we wrap this up. 30 minutes of talking about modding. Crazy! The next one is... Oh, for Goss. Yeah, this is good. Council funding is the name of the variable. I didn't really explain all of it, but the name here is the variable. That's the value, and then there's the comment description beyond it. Where is it? Okay, so by default, Goss Weapon Tech, in case you didn't know, has a 33% chance of ignoring 1 point of damage reduction. That's the shield icon when you try to shoot something. Like when you normally do 5 damage and you get a 1 shield, so you do 4 damage instead. That's the kind of number we're talking about. Goss Tech is supposed to be kind of armor piercing as an ammo type. But a shot having a 33% chance to avoid 1, I can't count on that. That's useless. So I just turned it to a flat 1. This means Goss is better. Goss comes with a +1 ammo, it's +1 damage over lasers on average, and it's -7, I believe, aim over lasers. I would never use Goss normally. I always just skip it. But I think if I gave it a full 1 damage reduction, this puts it a lot closer to +2 damage over lasers. Not exactly +2, but approximately. Which means, with the +1 ammo, I could see, instead of just rushing to Pulse Tech, I could see maybe picking this up. There would be opportunities where this would be more useful. Some people probably disagree, but that's my argument anyway. Next type, Rocket Scatter. Yeah, this is another fan favorite. Lots of people like this one. This, unfortunately, is a difficult stat to explain. The number is 7.8 by default. That is the scatter. That's how many tiles of scatter if you had 0 aim. So right now I went about half of that, 7.8 to 4. So assuming you could somehow get 0% aim, you would have a 4 tile scatter left or right. It could still hit dead on, but it's unlikely to do so. What's more likely is you'll have 60, 70, 80 aim in your character stats, which, if I run it through the formula, should result in between 1 and 2 tile scatter. If you can, same as before, if you can get to 120% aim, it will be a perfect shot. But if you can get to 100 aim, it'll be about 1 tile scatter, give or take. So, this kind of makes rockets more reliable. I've had a hard time using Rocketeers in Long War because, especially without cinematic mode, they miss all the time and they don't do what you need. So they're just a liability. This helps, keep them, I really like my infantry with the double shot, or the assault with the close combat, or the scout with the lightning reflexes. What do you like the rockets for? Try to destroy cover, but miss and do nothing? That's no fun. So I tried to improve that a little bit. And then the final one here is... This one's really complicated. This will be the most complicated of the batch. So I apologize for that. Is this the right one? SW Illyrium... No, not Half-Life. Loss. Okay. These two stats here. The Marathon, this is your modifier for dynamic war. If you have a 0.5, everything will go about twice as fast as in normal Long War. You'll get twice as much resources and stuff. Things will go twice as quickly. You'll do half as many missions. You can change this if you want. You can put it at 0.25, and everything will go about 4 times as fast. You can put it at 0.66, and everything will go about a third as fast, or 33% faster. However you want to phrase it number-wise. Fractions. That's not the number I'm changing. This is the number I'm changing. This number is usually 40. I have doubled it. The maximum is something like 200 or 250. It's related to the Marathon one if you've got Dynamic War enabled. So You would have to do some research to really know how to tweak this. This number represents how spread out the missions you will fight during the month. This does not change the total number of alien missions you get. They are still spending resources to send missions to you at the same number per month, no matter what you change this to. What this affects is how often you get 5 missions on the same day, or a couple days in between, or a week in between, whatever is fair. So, let's say for the month of June, the aliens had enough resources to send, and their AI, their programming says, we're going to send 10 missions at XCOM this month, or 10 UFOs / abduction missions, however the game works it out. If this number is, get this right, very low, if this is closer to 1, the closer it is to 1, the randomer it will be. Some days you may get 5 missions, and then you'll go for 2 weeks with nothing, and then you'll get 2 more in a row. It's hard to say what will happen, but it's very random. The higher this number is, the more spread out and regular the missions will be. I don't think I'm anywhere close to 10 missions over 30 days being 1 mission every 3 days. We're not going to get a mission and then 3 days off, and then a mission and then 3 days off. We're not at that kind of randomness. What I might be at is mission 5 days off, mission day off, mission 4 days off, mission 3 days off. So it sort of averages out to 3 days, but you don't get such a pileup. The reason I think this is so important to increase a little bit is Long War is very random, and that's one of the guiding principles. And it can be too random if you don't know what you're doing. So if you're new to the game and you're not prepared, like you didn't know that you could get 5 abduction missions on the same day, as well as 3 raiders, a large landed UFO, and 5 scouts plus 2 satellite destroyers. Those all happened in 24 hours. I've seen that kind of stuff happen. So unless you've got enough roster for soldiers ready to go, aircraft ready to go, enough weapons to deal with it, you're going to have to start skipping missions, which means less loot for you, more resources for the aliens. Keep that up for too long, they snowball, you get weaker, and then eventually you lose the campaign. You can prepare for it, but it's very hard to know how to prepare for it your first time playing. So a little bit less random on the mission scarcity spread outness, I think is a good thing. And I'm really happy I found this stat. I haven't had the chance to test it out very much yet. I've only played about a month after enabling this change, but it seems to be working. So I think this is a good one. The last file, or the last edit that I will mention here, is actually in a different file, and this is the meld canister timer. If you want to change this one, you change it yourself. It's real easy. I will provide the XComGamecore.ini. If you would also like meld canisters to last a little bit longer, you need to open, in the same directory as XComGamecore.ini, XComRandomSpawns.ini. It's a different file. Random spawns. It's a very short file, though. This one, I can switch this over. It's much, much easier to understand what's going on. Okay, random spawns. Okay, just go away. There we go. This is a much smaller document. I've only changed one number. Again, the math gets complicated, but this is the number I have changed. Did I write it down? Oh, shoot, I didn't write it down. I'm pretty sure it is 1.55 by default. There is a relatively complicated formula. Well, it's not complicated, but there is a formula that computes how long a meld canister will last before it disappears. It does not show it to you. It just knows. And I think it's related to how far away the meld canister is from your spawn location, so that the further away they are, you get a little bit more turns to activate it. I've doubled it, which might be too much, but I haven't really tested this out so much. It's not easy to tell. My idea is, in Long War, you have to play very defensively if you want to keep your soldiers alive. If you are aggressively running towards meld canisters, you are probably going to get people killed. So you have to make a decision. Do I want that meld, or do I want to stay alive? I'm trying to give you the best of two worlds, where unless you go really slowly, you still have a chance to get that meld and do it in a safe fashion. And I think this is a really important edit for my enjoyment, because I hate getting to that point where you're finally ready to get that meld, you've carefully cleared out those mutons, you know you haven't activated anything, you run your assault over there, you're ready to get it next turn, and it disappears. No meld to be had. That's the worst feeling, one of the worst feelings in the game, so I'm trying to reduce that. Anyway, I've rambled on for a super long time. I've tried to give you guys a bit of an update of how the campaign is going, and the edits to the INI file are in this game now as well, so things will be a little bit easier. I won't need quite as many soldiers, quite as many aircraft. Hopefully I can turn this campaign around and still get a victory. We still might be so far behind resource-wise that we're going to have a really hard time. Like, we may still end up losing for all I know. But I'm trying to give myself a chance, and I decided I want to share it with you guys. So if you made it through that 40 minutes of mod INI, I'm you know, good work. You've hopefully learned a thing or two about modding Long War. I recommend browsing through that INI file yourself. One of the best things about Long War is you can tweak it to make it the way you want it, to play it yourself. I just think it's very difficult until you've already learned the game to know what to change. So I still think they need to make normal mode a little easier. I'm sure everyone's heard me say that a million times by now. I've tried now to produce it. If you're interested, there's lots of more long-winded guides. There's a bunch of guides on Reddit and the Nexus forums. Just Google Long War XComGame core.ini editing. It's you can figure it out. You can read all about it. There's lots of people who have their own easy mode packs, their own tweak packs. Some people turn Exalt off completely. There's a mod you can get that completely turns Exalt off if you're sick of them. That might be worth it. I didn't feel like I was quite going to go that drastic. My idea was to keep all of the Long War features in and just make them less painful. Alright, folks. Thanks for watching. I will be continuing the classic campaign the next time I have a stream where I'm in the mood. And if your soldier's alive, good for you. We'll take a short moment of silence for the memorial. We have lost quite a lot of good soldiers by now. I guess it's not that bad, but losing these sergeants really hurts. Anyway, thanks for watching, folks. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Good luck on the Long War. I hope I've convinced one or two of you to give it another try, maybe with a little bit of a tweaking so it's not so punishing for the new players. See you guys next time.